Have you recently sensed that your grown-up children seem to be slowly drifting away? Are your conversations on the phone turning brief and family gatherings turning into rare occasions? Imagine if the root of the problem lay hidden in the very words you choose when you speak with them. Today, I'm here to expose the 5 harmful expressions that every older parent must absolutely avoid when talking to their adult children. And believe me when I say that the second one on the list has such a devastating impact that it could permanently sever your relationship with them. Over many years of guiding families through communication pitfalls, I have witnessed how these seemingly harmless comments can, under the surface, corrode deep emotional ties. By the end of this presentation, you'll be empowered with knowledge about which phrases to ban from your daily vocabulary and discover kinder, more effective ways to connect with your loved ones before the chance to mend those ties slips away. Let me share the story of Linda, a 72-year-old widow living in a quiet town in Ohio, who was deeply confused as to why her 3 adult children had begun to seem so emotionally distant over the past few years. No matter how much effort she put into planning family reunions or calling each week, the atmosphere during visits was often heavy and her calls answered with monosyllables. Linda felt a profound sense of loss and abandonment by the very children she had nurtured and sacrificed for. The turning point came unexpectedly when she attended a group counseling session with her youngest daughter. The therapist carefully pointed out specific, everyday remarks Linda had made, remarks she believed were just normal conversation, that were, in reality, pushing her children away. Linda was stunned to learn that the casual words she used every day held such a powerful capacity to wound. These weren't overt insults or direct criticisms. They were common expressions many parents, especially those of an older generation, use without realizing their latent harm. After Linda realized which expressions were toxic and started replacing them with more thoughtful alternatives, the transformation in her family relationships was astounding. In less than 3 months, her children began reaching out more often, visits became more frequent, and the long-standing undercurrent of tension gradually lifted as her new way of speaking began to restore the warmth in their interactions. Today, I am going to walk you through those very same phrases that once almost tore Linda apart from her beloved children. Phrases that might be undermining your family connections right now without you even knowing it. We're going to analyze each one carefully, understand why they are so hazardous, and discuss healthier language that can replace them. Let's dive right into these conversational traps and explore what you can say instead to rebuild and maintain those treasured family bonds. Harmful expression number 1. After everything I've done for you. Have you ever blurted out this phrase when you felt unappreciated by your grown-up children? It's a sentiment born from a sense of neglect or fading gratitude. However, many family counselors have noted that this expression is one of the most perilous forms of emotional coercion a parent can use. Experts, like Dr. Rebecca Martinez from Northwestern University, stress that such a remark creates a transactional mindset in your relationship. When you remind your child, after everything I've done for you, you inadvertently open up a scorecard of past sacrifices, a record of favors that turns natural love into a calculated debt. This powerful scorekeeping can lead to feelings of guilt rather than sincere appreciation. Consider the case of Richard, a 76-year-old retired engineer from Arizona. He couldn't fathom why his phone calls went unanswered. One evening at dinner, he mentioned that he had funded his son's education, remarking, "After all I've done for you, a simple weekly call seems too much to ask." His son's reaction was explosive. He confessed that such guilt-inducing comments had been building pressure for years and were the very reason he pulled away. With support from a trusted family counselor, Richard learned to replace that phrase with something far more constructive. "I really miss our chats. How about we set up a regular call? Maybe every Sunday if that fits your schedule." This modest change shifts the conversation from assigning debt to inviting warmth and regular contact. Instead of making your care conditional, Emphasize the joy of shared time. Remember, parenting was a choice nurtured by love, not an investment with returns, so let go of any need for repayment. Removing such expressions immediately paves the way for interactions based on mutual appreciation, free from the heavy weight of past obligations. Harmful expression number 2. Your spouse is turning you against me. This is perhaps the most perilous phrase you could utter, as it risks severing bonds for good. Relationship specialists consistently highlight how this statement can irreversibly damage trust. When you imply that your child's partner is negatively influencing them, you're not only attacking their spouse, but also undermining your child's judgment. Dr. James Wilson, who leads the Family Systems Institute, explains that such a statement forces adult children into a painful and impossible scenario, choosing between the loyalty to their parent or the allegiance to their partner. This forced choice creates intense emotional stress that, over time, erodes trust and dismantles the parent-child bond. Look at Barbara's experience, a 68-year-old grandmother in Seattle who repeatedly suggested that her daughter-in-law was the reason for her son's distancing behavior. Phrases like, "I bet your wife doesn't want you near me anymore," or "You weren't like this before you got married," might sound harmless, but they end up sowing discord. The situation escalated at a family event when Barbara publicly blamed her daughter-in-law for stealing her son. That night, her son sent a tearful text message declaring he needed space, and their connection faltered for a staggering 18 months. Barbara eventually realized that by publicly antagonizing her daughter-in-law, she had forced her son into a no-win predicament. Through professional counseling, she gradually learned to express her worries without resorting to blame. Instead of making accusations, she began saying, "I care deeply for you both. I'm still learning how to best support the two of you as a team." This friendly and inclusive language helps honor your child's adult relationship while still communicating your longing for connection without generating conflict or resentment. Harmful expression number 3. In my day, we did things differently. What appears to be a lighthearted, nostalgic remark may hide an unintended sting that undermines your relationship with your children. This statement tends to pit one generation against another, insinuating that modern practices are somehow less worthy or even inferior compared to those of the past. Dr. Sophia Chon, a respected academic in intergenerational studies from Boston University, notes that when parents frequently hark back to the old days, it creates an automatic division where today's choices are seen as errors or shortcomings. To illustrate, consider the story of Samuel, a 74-year-old retired teacher from Tennessee. Samuel was baffled as to why his daughter grew defensive every time he offered to help with her kids. He would often begin with, "Back in my day, children respected their parents," or "We didn't have these complex rules when I was young." Though his suggestions came from a place of care, his daughter felt her own parenting skills were being devalued and judged harshly by comparison. Once Samuel understood the unintended criticism inherent in his nostalgic comparisons, he shifted his approach. Instead of recounting past practices, he started engaging his daughter in dialogue about why certain customs changed over time. By asking, "Could you share what works best for your family these days?" he conveyed genuine curiosity rather than judgment. This sincere exchange opened the door for mutual respect and gradually reduced the defensiveness that had long marred their interactions. Rather than comparing eras, a simple, "I'm really interested in how you handle these situations nowadays. May I share a little of what helped me back then?" can present your experience as an optional insight rather than a rule to follow. This method invites discussion and fosters a shared understanding between generations. Harmful expression number 4. You never visit, call me. Although the sentiment behind this saying might stem from loneliness or a longing for connection, using such absolutes as never or always instantly puts your children on the defensive. Absolute statements are distortions of reality, They dismiss the genuine efforts your children make, no matter how infrequent those efforts seem to you. Dr. Michael Ramirez, a family psychologist and noted author of Healing Family Relationships, points out that overgeneralizing with words like never creates an impossible standard for your adult children. Even if they reached out just the month before, such a comment rewrites the entire picture as insufficient, breeding resentment and anxiety for every future interaction. Think about Evelyn, a 70-year-old widow residing in Chicago. She often lamented to her daughter in stark terms, saying, "You never call, and you hardly ever visit." Even though her daughter communicated through texts and occasional social media messages multiple times a week. The issue wasn't the frequency of contact, but Evelyn's expectation of a constant, ideal level of engagement. Her breakthrough came when a close friend suggested keeping a journal to document every instance of connection. Evelyn was surprised to discover that there was indeed regular contact. Only her interpretation of the interactions was skewed by her own feelings of loneliness. With guidance from a therapist, Evelyn began to celebrate every call and message by expressing sincere gratitude. "I really enjoyed our last chat," or "Thank you for the pictures you sent of your family." When she needed more contact, she shifted from accusatory language to a gentle invitation such as, "I've been feeling a bit isolated lately. Could we schedule a time to catch up properly?" This form of positive reinforcement acknowledges their efforts without imposing impossible standards or diluting the affection inherent in the connection. Harmful expression number 5. "You'll regret it when I'm gone." Perhaps the most heartbreaking of all, this expression uses the inevitability of mortality as an emotional threat, designed to manipulate rather than to nurture. While it might seem like a desperate bid for attention, using your own eventual absence to coerce your children into spending more time with you is a dangerous trap. Experts warn that mixing the real fear of loss with overt guilt can lead to a complete emotional shutdown from those you care about. Dr. Elizabeth Parker, a seasoned gerontologist and family counselor from the University of Michigan, elucidates that employing phrases like this attaches a strong negative connotation to your passing. Instead of inspiring cherished memories, it forces your children into a fearful, guilt-driven response that makes them recoil rather than connect. For example, consider Robert, a 78-year-old grandfather in Colorado, whose casual references to his mortality, "One day, when I'm not here, you'll wish you had listened," became a constant refrain in times of disagreement. His children eventually perceived these remarks as a form of emotional blackmail and began to minimize contact to protect themselves from ongoing guilt. The shift came only when his eldest child courageously explained how these threats had created a toxic environment in their family circle. With professional help, Robert recognized that beneath his words lay a raw, unaddressed fear of disappearing from his children's lives. He then started sharing his desire for connection without resorting to ultimatums. A more heartfelt, non-manipulative approach would be, "I cherish the moments we share, and I hope we can create even more beautiful memories together." This expression invites connection by emphasizing the joy of shared experiences rather than leveraging the pain of eventual loss. It's important to let your children know that they are loved and that you value them for who they are, not simply out of fear of the future. The hidden dangers of everyday language. What makes these 5 expressions so insidious is their apparent familiarity. They are woven into everyday conversation, often without intent to hurt. Many older parents believe these remarks are merely reflections of their emotions and memories, entirely unaware of the deep-rooted consequences they may have. Neuroscientific research from Harvard Medical School explains that when adult children hear these types of accusatory or emotionally manipulative statements, their brains react as if facing a physical danger. Dr. Ephraim Jonathan Hayes' research reveals that continual exposure to such stressors can activate long-term avoidance behaviors. Over time, even if the distancing seems unconscious, These responses effectively create an emotional barrier between parent and child, as the brain is trained to retreat from potential harm rather than to embrace familial love. However, there is hope. Recognizing these patterns is an essential first step in transforming how you communicate with those you love. By consciously substituting toxic phrases with more positive and direct language, you can begin to repair and even rebuild damaged relationships. Changing decades-long habits isn't a swift process, and it may require persistent effort, but the rewards are immense. Here's a simple 3-step approach recommended by family therapists to improve everyday communication. Embrace self-awareness. Recognize your emotional triggers and the context that prompt you to use harmful language. Ask yourself, what underlying need, loneliness, fear, disappointment, is driving my response? Understanding the root cause will equip you to better articulate those feelings without the harmful commentary. Pause before speaking. When you feel the urge to criticize or use an absolute statement, take a brief moment to breathe and reflect. This short pause can be the difference between a hurtful remark and a supportive comment. With practice, this mindful hesitation becomes natural and helps build a more thoughtful conversation. Express directly and kindly. Instead of defaulting to a complaint or an accusatory comment, try to explain your feelings clearly. For instance, substitute, "You never visit, call me," with, "I've been feeling quite lonely lately, and I truly miss the sound of your voice. Would you be open to scheduling some regular time to talk?" Direct expressions of emotion and need can pave the way for deeper, more understanding relationships. Consider Patricia's inspiring journey. At 75, she found that her habitual phrases had created a large emotional gulf between herself and her 3 adult children. Determined to mend the fractured bonds, she committed to consciously abandoning old habits and practicing these new approaches. Initially, her children viewed these changes with caution, but as Patricia consistently demonstrated a gentler, more open way to communicate, their defenses gradually softened. Remarkably, within 6 months, her daughter even proposed a weekend getaway, a family tradition that had been lost for years. Patricia's transformation shows that even deeply entrenched communication styles can be successfully altered with mindfulness, patience, and a genuine desire to reconnect. Strategies for a new beginning. Now that you're aware of these 5 destructive phrases, let's focus on proactive steps you can take to cultivate healthier communication and strengthen those precious family ties. Regular expressions of gratitude. Make it a habit to acknowledge your children's efforts and appreciate the moments they do share with you. Small words of thanks can create a ripple effect of positive interaction. Celebrate even the tiniest gestures, turning routine calls or messages into cherished moments. Respect for individual lives and boundaries. Understand that your adult children are navigating busy careers, personal commitments, and their own families. Embrace the uniqueness of their lives without imposing expectations that might feel overwhelming. Recognize that their priorities now extend beyond your relationship, and that is a natural evolution rather than a personal slight. Fostering enjoyable interactions. Strive to become the parent who uplifts, not the one whose mere presence brings stress or an overwhelming sense of obligation. Think about sharing uplifting stories, engaging in lighthearted conversations, or simply showing curiosity about their hobbies and interests. When interactions become something to look forward to, your relationships will thrive. Collaborative family traditions. Instead of holding onto past traditions that may no longer fit everyone's current lifestyle, work together to create new customs that respect each family member's time and commitments. This collaborative approach not only honors evolving lifestyles, but also reinforces a sense of unity and shared purpose in today's fast-paced world. By integrating these positive strategies while eliminating toxic language, you will gradually move from an environment of blame and resentment to one of mutual respect, care, and genuine connection. With sustained effort, your relationship with your adult children can evolve into an even more rewarding, trusting, and fulfilling bond. In conclusion, now that you know which 5 phrases can quietly undermine your connection with your children, you also have practical alternatives that invite warmth and understanding. This isn't about condemning yourself for past missteps. It's about embracing a new way forward. Each day offers a fresh chance to communicate from the heart, without the hidden barriers of guilt, blame, or manipulation. Reflect on your own conversations. Can you identify moments where you've relied on these harmful expressions? If so, consider this your call to action. Choose one toxic phrase to eliminate today and consciously replace it with a gentle alternative. In time, you'll likely notice a subtle but powerful change. Your children will sense the difference in your approach, and while they may not immediately express it, the slow mending of your relationship will speak volumes. If any part of this resonated with you, if you recognize these words in your own dialogue, share your thoughts in the comments below. Which phrase caught you by surprise? And if you found value in this insight, please remember to like and subscribe. Your engagement not only encourages us to bring you more thoughtful content, but might also help another family mend its bonds. Together, we can transform the way we communicate, foster understanding, and create a legacy of love that endures well into our later years. Thank you for watching, and here's to rewriting the script of our family relationships, one thoughtful conversation at a time.